Portuguese. But I'm excited to be here today. I wanted to take this opportunity to speak with you about how do you go about defining a career action plan. Okay. Now, most people don't think about their career until they graduate. Okay, they'll say, well, let me just finish school first. Let me just get all of that out of the way, and then I'll start looking for a job. And I'm sure Anna was trying to tell you that's the wrong strategy. It's the wrong play. Okay, now it will work for a few of you, but for the most, it won't work. Okay. So what I want to talk to you about today is I'm going to have two topics. The first topic is career action plan. Okay. The second topic is talking about the importance of international internships or international careers. Okay, so that may be applicable to some of you or most of you, depending on your career plan. Okay, so I don't have any slides with me, so pay attention. Right? But if you need any information, I'll tell you where you can find it. If you don't understand anything I say, just raise your hand, ask me to repeat, and I'm trying to talk over the music out there. Okay, all right. So, who can tell me what would be the first thing you would do when you start your job search? Who wants to be a brave volunteer? That's pretty good. I mean, the first thing you do need to know what you want to do. That's the most important. But before you know what you want to do, you need to know what skills you have to offer. Okay, so a lot of times people will tell me, oh, I want to work for Google, or I want to work for Apple. And I say, yeah, but it really doesn't matter because if they don't want you, it doesn't matter, right? So when you start thinking that way, you have to start thinking, okay, why would Google want to hire me? Why would Apple want to hire me? Why would Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Vodafone, I mean, we can go on with the list of companies, but you have to always ask yourself, first, why would they want to hire me? And then that forces you to say, well, let me assess myself first. Let me figure out what skills I have, what are my, personality traits that are attractive, what do people say I'm good at, what's my passion, what motivates me to get out of the bed, what type of work environment would I do best in? I mean, you have to ask yourself all of these questions, okay? And it's worth it, trust me, it's worth it to answer those questions first and figure out, okay, let me see who I really am, what do I really like to do, what's gonna be something that separates me from all of my peers, okay? Because in the job market, you won't just be competing against yourselves, you're gonna be competing against everybody else in Portugal, outside of Portugal, all over the world. So the more you can identify what your unique talents are, the better you will be able to compete in the job market. So everything starts with a self-analysis, self-assessment, okay? And what you want to do, you say, okay, well, how do I go about doing that? Well, step one in the self-assessment, you're going to, go to career services and take advantage of the resources you have here at ISCTE and see what type of resources they have in terms of personality assessment tests, because your personality is very important, okay? If you tell me, well, I want to work in consulting, but you only want to work 6 hours a day, I'm going to say, well, maybe consulting is not for you. If you say, well, I want to work for McKinsey, but I don't want to travel, well, maybe McKinsey is not for you, right? If you say, well, I want to work for Google, but I don't really like tech stuff, well, maybe Google is not for you. So the idea is to start figuring out where do you belong in the employment market, okay? It takes a little time, but it's worth it because you'll discover like, wow, I didn't know I was good at that, or I didn't know people thought this about me, or, use these like what we call 360-degree feedback. You start talking to your friends, your family, professors, and you'll kind of get an idea of what are my skills, what are my interests, what are my unique personality traits, okay? So that's step one, self-assessment. Step two, now you say, okay, I know a little bit about me, I know what I like, I know what I don't like. Now, let me identify and let me research the market, okay? So this is step two of the career action plan, research the market. And what is the market? The market is everything. It's not just companies. It's industries, companies, job descriptions, people, countries. everything. So if you tell me I want to work in Ireland, the first thing I'm going to say is, what do you know about Ireland? Now, if you tell me, hey, I want to work in China, what do you know about China? Because we need to see what you know. You need to know, okay, well, I don't really know about a lot about China. I just think it would be cool to work there. But do the research. Because then you want to start saying, well, I know what I like. I know the type of things I'm good at. So let me look at some companies. Let me identify some companies that will have those types of jobs that I'll be interested in. Okay? Now, when we go back to step one, we talk about the self-assessment, looking at what you like. That includes professions as well. So it's not just all personality, it's not just all soft skills, but it's also the hard skills. It's also the things that, types of industries you may be attracted to. You may be attracted to fashion. You say, I love fashion, I want that's anything to do with fashion, or anything to do with sports. Okay, well, I love technology. I mean, if I could just be in the technology industry, I don't care if I work for Vodafone, Google, Hotmail, Yahoo, Microsoft. You just said, I need to be in the industry, okay? So these are the things you want to start figuring out, like, what do you like, what type of gadgets or what type of conversations do you find yourself having? Are you always talking about sports? Are you always talking about entertainment? Do you like the pharmaceutical industry? Do you like consumer goods? Maybe you like, the products in the marketplace. I just want to be a part of it. I want to be doing something with, packaging and all of this type of branding and all of that. So then when you start researching the market, you're looking for opportunities in those areas. You say, okay, well, China, we'll say China just to make an example. So I want to work in China. I hear there's some opportunities there, a lot of growth, the companies, the industries that I'm interested in are really growing there. So you start researching that market. How do you do that? Again, start with career services. See what resources we have. Okay, so make it easy on yourself. Look at, see, we have a tool called Going Global, for example. And this would be like a first step to say, well, hey, I don't have any work authorization work, to be in China. So let me see what that is first. So you start doing this research on work authorizations, anything that can be a barrier. Is there any particular CV format you need for that region? Do we have any alumni in that region? Okay, make it easier on yourself. Maybe I can talk to a professor. Maybe they sent a student, maybe they know students from the past that work in industries in China. So you start doing these things, these type of networking, research type of analysis, okay? It's very important, very important. Now, you're gonna look at job descriptions. Why? The importance of looking at the job description, not so you can just apply to everything, but then so you can get an idea of what are the skills, okay? What are the skills, knowledge, abilities, requirements of the types of jobs that you would be interested in, okay? So this is what I call getting market intelligence. You want to say, let me understand everything about China. Let me understand everything about the industries I'm interested in. Let me identify at least 10 companies in those industries that I really would be interested in. Let me identify some job descriptions from those companies to see how far I am to matching the requirements. Let me identify some ISCTE alumni that work with me, or anybody in my personal network. Let me just find people. So there's this whole analysis, analytical process that you go through, okay, before you just apply to a job, okay? Now, then we move on to step 3. You say, okay, wow, what's step 3? It seems like a lot of work. And I just want to go online and apply to some jobs. That's the easy way. That's what people usually want to do first, okay? But this way, this is more planning because you're taking a step. You're saying, well, I'm in my final year, so let me put a little strategy. Let me start building towards this process so that when I do, and I'll tell you why all of this is important. What you want to do is when you get in front of an interviewer, whether it's a hiring manager, recruiter, or someone who's just influential at the company, you want to sound like you know what you're talking about, right? You want to sound like you're competent, like you've done the research. It shouldn't be, well, okay, so what do you want to do? Well, I don't know, I'll do anything. That's not attractive. I mean, people say that, no, I'm open to doing anything. But you can't do everything. So, you have to give the company some direction because they're looking for you to say, hey, what can you do for us? You're the one that's completing a degree at the top, business school. You should be bringing us something. I mean, surely, there's some skills that you can bring to us, or there's some areas of interest that you can really, work in to help our business. So the more you sound like a professional, the more you sound like you've done your homework, the better off you'll be when we get to that final stage of the process, which is talking to someone at the company about a job opportunity, okay? So, talk about step one. Step one, self-assessment. Step two, research the market. Step three, identify your goal or your career goal. Okay, so this is where you say, okay, Anna, or you go talk to Tiago or Nadia, you say, you know, I've done my research, what I want to do, this is what I want to do. I want to work as a brand manager for Samsung in South Korea. Okay, very specific type goals. Or I'm looking at working in Portuguese-speaking markets in Africa or Brazil, within the energy industry, and I would like to do something in corporate finance. Okay, those are specific goals. Okay, Anna, Nadia, Tiago, Oliver, I mean, okay, they can work with specific goals because it's more to the point. If you just say, well, you know, I want to work in corporate finance. Okay, where? In corporate finance, what do you want to do? Where? I mean, there's still questions to be resolved, okay? But if you do that homework, and you say, look, after really researching, talking to people, getting an idea of the market, knowing what I really like, identifying those types of fields and jobs that really will allow me to do my best work, it's got to be corporate finance. It's got to do corporate finance. I want to be with a mid-sized company. I want to be in Brazil, or I want to be in France. You know, that's my goal. Okay, let's start making a step to go to that goal. Okay, so that's step three. It's just identifying the goal. Based on the prior two steps, you should then start having an idea like, okay, this is the goal I'm going to pursue. Okay, it doesn't mean that you're locked in to where, like, for example, you tell me, well, I want to do corporate finance for, I don't know, JP Morgan in Brazil. And then you say, oh, right, you know, there's an opportunity. A friend of mine told me that JP Morgan, Switzerland is hiring. I said, go for it. I mean, it doesn't change anything. I mean, because you still have the same knowledge, you still know everything, you still are clear on your career goal. It's just if another opportunity happens to come your way or something that, you know, you come across in pursuit of your initial goal, and you say, wow, I didn't think about working in Switzerland. But, hey, I've got the profile for this position. It's something international. It'll allow me to build a different profile. I'll go for it. I'll say go for it. It doesn't change anything. So a lot of times people think, yeah, but I don't want to be so specific because then I might miss out on that opportunity. Like, no, you're not going to miss out on these opportunities. Because what you have to realize is you can't work everywhere. You're not going to have a profile to work in every industry, every company, every country, every job description. So you need to understand, like, okay, where am I going to be the best fit? Where am I going to be strongest? What companies are going to likely want to hire somebody with my profile? So then you're more strategic. And within that strategy, there may be 10 types of companies. There may be, 10 types of jobs. There may be a few countries. So you still have a lot of variety, even with that strategy. And then that's applicable to anything else, okay? So you identify your career goal, all right? Then step 4. You say, okay, I've identified my career goal. Now, I'm good. Well, not exactly. Still got a little bit more to go, okay? Just a little bit. So you get to step 4. You say, well, now I need to identify my gaps. Okay, now what do I mean by gaps? So imagine you've done your research and you see, what you want to do, let's say corporate finance. And you want to do corporate finance in Switzerland. And you want to do it for JP Morgan or any similar type of thing. But when you look at the job descriptions, when you talk to people in your network, when you talk to professors, you've done an internship, you've done these type of, well, this will be later on, but you talk to people and you say, well, it looks like in the job description, they want X, Y, Z, and I only have A, B, C. So there's a gap. They have some requirements that I just don't have yet, I don't meet yet. How do I close that gap? So it's important to identify the gaps early as possible, okay? And why? Because if you identify them early, you can take the steps to start minimizing the gaps, okay? So if there's a requirement where they say, well, you have to have work authorization here, then you can say, well, I need to really do some research on what are the requirements for getting work authorization and how I can best position myself to get a company to sponsor me, for example. If there's a language requirement, you say, well, look, I won't be fluent in that language by the time I graduate, but I can make steps to show a company that I'm taking courses, I'm trying to speak the language. I'm trying to at least show them that, look, I'm dedicated to learning this language because I see it's a requirement for your company or for this industry. If there's a specific technical knowledge, okay, so let's stick with the theme of finance. And imagine they say, well, we want somebody that really knowledgeable about derivatives. Well, you say, well, I need to take some more courses in derivatives then, or I need to do some more research on that. Maybe something extra, an extracurricular activity, any type of case competition, anything that you can do to start building that skill, right? And you start saying, okay, I'm going to have to do something to get closer to that, to close that gap. Now, what else can you do? This is where the fun comes in. You have tools that you can use, okay? Maybe you've done an internship. You guys in your last year, right? So you'll finish, June 2013, something like that. Okay. I don't know if you've done an internship or not, but if you haven't, then you say, well, there's something I can do to make myself more competitive. Do you guys have to do a thesis or anything? No thesis? Okay, thank good for you. That's good. That's work for you guys. But what you want to do is say, well, let me look for things I can do in the academic program and to close that gap. There may be some projects. There's an ISCTE Dream Consulting Club. There's all these things that companies come on campus and they say, well, we want to do a 2-day case competition with your students. So you start looking for these opportunities to just get little skills that you can show to a company that, look, I don't have everything that you want, but I have the profile. I'm the type of person that you can hire for an entry-level position. Because what they're going to look for, they won't expect you to have this huge profile and 10 years of experience in knowing that. That's not even the game, right? The game is to say, look, we want to hire the people that are best prepared to be successful, okay? So they're going to make an investment in you. They just want to see that, okay, who's going to be best prepared to be successful in our company? So the more you can show that you've been working towards being successful, and that's going to be all that you can do within academics, any type of cases or projects that you can do, or work assignments, work projects, like internships, anything you can do to make that case. Okay, that's how you close the gap. Now, so finally we get to the last step. So we've gone through the self-assessment. Second was research the market. Third was identifying the goal. The fourth is closing the gaps, or identifying the gaps so you can close them. And the final one is just making the plan. Okay, so now you make a plan. This is where the action plan comes in. You say, okay, hey, I've got my goal. I've identified the gaps. I know what I want to do. Here we are at the end of September. I want a job by June 2013. So let's work our way backwards, right? So, okay, begin with the end in mind. Okay, there's an author, Stephen Covey, that wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And one of the things he said was begin with the end in mind. So you think about, look, if I want to be employed by June 2013, if I at least want a job offer, work your way back. So what are the things I need to do to make sure I've improved the likelihood of that happening? Okay? So that's why we start now. That's why you guys are here. That's why I'm happy to see all of you here, because this is an opportunity for you to use your final year to say, hey, look, let me make sure that I'm also studying, I'm also continuing my academics, but that I don't put the career education to the side. I don't put the career management to the side. That I integrate it throughout the program. That each week I'm doing something towards my career, just like I'm doing something towards academics. So when you start making a plan, you map it out, you write it out, you have your schedule. You say, okay, well, here we are in September. October, this is what I need to do. I've identified the goal that I want. So first of all, let me see if there's some alumni that work in these companies and countries that I need to work in. Make sure you're on IBS networking. Make sure you have a LinkedIn profile. Anybody know LinkedIn? Because I know everybody doesn't have one, but get one, okay? Trust me, it's working. And not just to appear on there, but join some groups. I mean, it's a great networking tool. It's a great way to network, stay in contact with other students, your fellow students, and also alumni. Because really, when you identify with people, you can identify some people that work in companies you're interested in. Not to ask for a job, but you're asking for advice, you're asking for tips. You say, hey, look, I see that you work in this company that I want to work for, and I'm going to be graduating next year. give me some tips. What's the best way to go about that? What's the process? And they may tell you, oh, here's some things that you need to do. JP Morgan, for example, they like to pull their full-time hires from internships, or they like for people to go to their website and play like a business game, and then they choose people from there. Or you just have to apply online, and they like to, or they do references. So I can give you a reference, and that will at least help you to get an interview. So you get all this information, okay? But you have that plan out. You say, okay, well, I'm going to identify alumni. Next, I'm going to do an informational interview. Now, how many of you guys know what an informational interview is? Okay, basically it's what it is. Informational interview. It's just you join, well, what you would do is identify someone. It could be an alumni, it could be a professor, it could be a manager at a company or within the industry you want to work, and you arrange an interview with them. It could be by phone, Skype, it could be in person, preferably in person if the person is here in this country. But if you say, look, I want to work in Switzerland, and you identify someone there, hey, in career services, there are ways to find out how could I approach that person. What's the best way to approach that person? Google it. It's just say, look, Google's your friend. Just say, put in, okay, what's the best way to do X, Y, Z, and you'll see all types of strategies that come up. But anyway, with the informational interview, it's basically saying, let me identify someone that's in the field or industry that I want to work in and ask some questions. So you need to have a few questions that are related to your career and say, well, this person can really help me make some direction. So, and it can be as simple as, what types of people does your company usually hire? What does it take to succeed? What are the new business ventures that are coming on the horizon? So, you may talk to JP Morgan, and they say, well, next year we're going to open up 3 offices in Brazil. Business is just booming. Okay, wow, okay. So when you start orienting your profile, your CV, your interviewing strategy, you can start thinking about, look, I know they need people for Brazil, so let me play up all of my skills, all of my strengths. Those of you who speak Portuguese, I don't know if everybody here speaks Portuguese, but if you don't, that's an advantage if you want to work in Brazil. Or maybe you speak another language. Maybe you speak, Mandarin or French or whatever. But what you want to do is identify where you have those advantages, okay? So you learn that by talking to people. That's the value of the informational interview. So do those. People are happy to speak with you. And then you say, okay, well, so I'm going to do X number of informational interviews by X date, okay? Then you say, okay, well, here are the deadlines for applications. So it's very important. Very important. Some companies have very tight deadlines, okay? They may start taking applications next month. So look at what you're interested in. I mean, that's why it's important to identify your career goal, because for some majors, especially investment banking, consulting, they have global deadlines, depending on the consulting firm you want to work for. If it's the management consulting firm, like BCG, McKinsey, and you're looking at investment banking companies like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, they have usually global deadlines because they just recruit globally. So they say, look, everybody, I don't care where you are, you have to have your application in by, let's say November of this year. Because we're going to start, making selections and determining who we're going to interview by, December, January, what have you. Because they like to make decisions early. Because they want to get the best people early. They don't want to wait till March, okay? So you're going to find when it's on a global scale, things are happening by deadlines. So you need to be aware of that, okay? So that's where that research comes in. That's where knowing what your target companies are. That's where talking to people, because people can tell you, hey, look, if you want to work there, you need to go ahead and make sure you do this by X date, okay? So it's all of that. It's that planning month by month, week by week. What do I need to do? Also, build into your action plan, researching your industry. You haven't done a master's degree, or you haven't done any advanced degree to be really specialized in something. But to get specialized, to become an expert, you just need to read. I mean, you don't need to have 5 years of experience. I mean, how old are you guys? I mean, wasn't Mark Zuckerberg 19 or something when he started Facebook? I mean, that right there just, if I was like you guys, I would say, wow, that would just be my inspiration to say, screw it, I don't need to work 5, 10 years to be an expert in something. I just need to follow whatever I'm good at or whatever I like, and I just need to know more about it than the average person. And I need to know how to see, ideas and spot trends, because really youth is on your side. I mean, you have more experience, you have more to offer than you think. So don't think of yourself as like, well, I don't have any years of work experience, so I just need the company to just train me and give me an opportunity. But you should also say, look, I'm bringing something to the company as well, and try to use those types of that type of philosophy as motivation. Look at yourself and say, look, I can bring something to the company, right? I've got something to offer. So look at how you present that. When you start designing your CV, you're going to do that. So have a date. We're September now, end of September. Have a date to make sure you've got your CV targeted towards the company or industries that you want to work in. Okay, and you may have to have multiple CVs, depending on what your interests are. Okay, so you may want a CV that's for that you may want to work in the pharmaceutical industry. Will look different for one if you want to work in the energy industry. Okay, because you may want to highlight some different things, but you can build your expertise in something. So if you say, look, I really want to work in the energy industry, subscribe to some newsletters, some energy, renewables newsletters, subscribe to the blogs for like experts in the field who always talk about the latest and the greatest in that industry. Okay, so you can do that by industry. You can do it by job function. If you say, look, marketing is my thing, and not even marketing, let's be more specific, brand management or consumer behavior research, that's my thing. Subscribe to the blogs, the newsletters, keep up with journals, keep up with anything that if you read it, and this is why this is an accumulative approach. If you read it every day, or at least once or twice a week, over the course of a few months, you'll find that you're going to know a lot more than the average person. So when you get in front of an interviewer, you're going to find that, wow, I can speak on this subject as if I were a professional, because you're so into it. You're reading about it so much. You start thinking about it. When you go to the supermarket, you start looking at products differently, because you're like, okay, let me just look at this product. You start talking to your friend, so why do you buy that product? Yeah, okay. I mean, you start becoming like a, market researcher. You start looking at brands. You start saying, okay, but why is this brand more luxurious than that brand? Why do people want an iPad versus a Samsung Galaxy? I mean, you start, thinking like a brand manager, thinking like a product manager, thinking like a sales manager. And so that's the most important part, is to like building that expertise into your mindset to where when you get in front of an interviewer or someone that you're doing an informational interview with, the quality of the questions that you ask are going to show them like, wow, this person seems like they're pretty serious about this career. Okay, let's keep in touch. So all this is part of the action plan. So basically the plan is that it's like setting something each month. So okay, I'm going to read X journals per week that are related to my career that are going to help me be an expert in this field. I'm going to identify the top companies I want to work for by October 15th. I'm going to make sure I know all the application deadlines by, XYZ date. I'm going to make sure that my CV is done by this date. And I'm going to make sure I get feedback on it and make sure it's in, it sells me in the proper format. I'm going to contact the alumni in this company or in this region of the world, and I'm going to make sure that I write out everything they say in terms of how to get into their companies or what the market conditions are for that specific region. So it's sticking to a plan, okay? It's sticking to a plan, and then you say, okay, by January 1st, I should be in a position to at least start interviewing with some companies. So I'm gonna make it my goal to at least get one interview by, the end of January. When you set goals, you make it happen, okay? The thing about it is, if you don't write it out, if you don't put it on the whiteboard, I love the whiteboard, because it's blank and it forces you to fill it in. I love it, because you have to fill it in, because here's nothing. But when you write out a calendar, you say, look, okay, by X date, I need to do this. It will force you, because every time you come home, or every time it pops up on your Google Calendar, whatever calendar you use, or if you have space in your room or your home, it will force you to stick to the plan, okay? Because that's what it's all about. I mean, really getting a job is just sticking to a plan. It's just having the discipline to say, look, I need to do these things by X date. The same way you treat your academics. So I've been doing this a long time. I've been coaching for over 10 years. And I find that everybody, when it comes to the academics and the courses, they're sticking to that. Oh, they have a syllabus, they have the calendars, I need to do this by this day. the professor said you need to have this read by this day. I need to turn this project in by that day. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you know how to plan. It's just when it comes to the career, people are like, oh, no, man. Can I just apply and just skip all the other stuff? But you will apply, okay? So that's one method. But another method too, you're gonna also get opportunities from talking to people, okay? From the networking, from the talking, doing these informational interviews, you'd be surprised how powerful those are, okay? So that, in a nutshell, is developing a career action plan, okay? It's really simple. It's making sure that you just follow those steps. You've done the research on yourself. You've done the research on the market. So you're gonna understand the market. That includes doing SWOT analyses and all of that stuff. I mean, you really do research. I mean, you really understand these companies because you wanna see like, where do I fit in? I know me, I know myself. Now I know you, so now let's see how I can fit. You know, that's the strategy. Get about the goal. Okay, hey, I know what I wanna do. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but wow, after listening to Roderick, I think I need to figure out what I want to do. And now, a month or two later, you know what you want to do. Then you say, well, here are the gaps. You know, there's a little gap here. I need to straighten that up. I've got time. I can do that while I'm still a student. I can at least work towards that goal, make myself more competitive, right? And then you just implement the plan, okay? Just write out the plan, say, okay, I want my job offer by this date. I want to have my first interview by that day. Hey, I got to get to it. I've got to make sure that I'm talking to people, that I'm doing my CV, that I'm networking, that I'm looking at application deadlines. I'm talking to professors. I'm talking to the Career Center. I'm doing everything it takes to meet that deadline. And how will this help you? It's going to be the same thing you do. The same thing you're doing now. You have deadlines to meet now, right? I mean, you have deadlines. There's no college student that doesn't have a deadline to meet. And you're going to do it when you start working. Your boss is going to give you deadlines. So you're going to be having goals and strategies and planning and deadlines for the rest of your life. So this is something that is going to show you as more of a professional when you start talking to companies. I don't care if it's an interviewer or I don't care if it's alumni or just someone you're networking with that can, you know, introduce you to someone at your company. The fact that you're planning and you're goal setting, that speaks a lot about you, okay? So that wraps up that presentation about career action planning. Any questions? How about the time, man?
Faltam 20 minutos.
Okay, very good. So, the next presentation, and it's been a little shorter. What I want to talk to you about is, and you guys are in your last year, so what I want to talk more about is international careers. I was going to talk about internships, but that's really not applicable at this point, unless you do a post-graduation internship, okay? Unless you say, well, you know, I couldn't find a full-time job that I wanted, but let me do like what I call a post-graduation internship. And it's just setting up like a 10-week project with the company, okay? Good way to get your foot in the door. But anyway, let me talk about international careers, just to put that on the table. If you weren't thinking about it, or if you are thinking about it, let's talk about the value of it and how do you go about achieving that, okay? So basically, you would use the same strategy that we talked about in the career plan. But what I want to impress upon you is that don't limit yourself to just opportunities in Portugal, okay? Look at the degree you have, it's like a passport, okay? You can go anywhere. And the opportunities, the importance of like starting out your career well are very important. So you don't want to just say, well, you know, man, the weather's so nice, just look outside. How can I leave Portugal, right? Man, nobody wants to leave. It's a beautiful country. But when you start pursuing your career, and if you see that, for what I want to do, the opportunities in Portugal are just limited. It may just be your career goal, it's just limited for what you want to do in Portugal. The office, it may be like, say you want to work for Google or Apple. Apple has an office here, but it's small. So how many people can they really absorb here, right? So you say, well, I want to work for that type of industry, and if I want to work for a big company, then I may have to look outside of the country. If you want to work for a smaller player, then there are opportunities here. You have a lot of startups. It just depends on what you want to do. But when you start looking at international careers, there's a lot of planning that you need to take into consideration. Because you're going to have to look, okay, what are those major barriers to entry? So I touched upon that when I talked about work authorizations. If you're trying to work outside of the EU and not from the EU, then that's something you need to take into consideration. Language. Even though English is the global business language, some countries just say, look, in this department, we're going to speak English, but you also have to know the local language, okay? So that's why I talked about knowing, when you start planning, knowing those things early in advance, because you can take courses in any language now, and at least, you won't be fluent, but at least you can get some competency in the language. And I just talked to a company a few weeks ago in Germany, and basically they said, well, English is the language, our working language. But we want people to learn German. And they said, if your students are willing to learn German, we'll pay for the training. So you just need to be willing. You just need to say, look, I'm willing to learn. And if you show evidence that you're at least trying to learn, then that will help your case, because they'll say, well, look, this person's already trying to learn the language. As part of the employment package, we'll pay for it. We'll pay for you to learn. We'll pay for extra classes that you can take in the evenings or weekends or whatever. So those languages can be a barrier, but look for those opportunities where companies are open to hiring you if you're willing to learn. I spoke to a company a few years ago, and they were based in Austria. And again, English was the language they wanted. But this time, they said, no, you have to know German. I mean, it didn't matter. I had people say, no, I will learn it. Just, if they hire me, I'll do whatever it takes to learn it. But they wanted it as a precondition. So there wasn't an issue with work authorization or anything. It was just pure language was the barrier. And it was a great opportunity, well-paying opportunity. And the guy said, no, sorry, no, it's not our corporate policy. So these are things, when you start looking at international careers, they're not, you don't wake up one day and just say, hey, I want an international career. Or you're gonna say, well, I'm gonna put all my eggs in one basket and I'm gonna try to work in Portugal. And if I don't have a job in Portugal by June of 2013, then I'll look abroad. But it doesn't work like that. Because it's not that easy. It's not just like something you say, oh, let me just go to the Career Center. It's June 2013, I just graduated 10 minutes ago. I want a job in China. Give me the job. It doesn't work like that. And it would be nice if it did, right? But it doesn't. There are things that are outside of our control because they're all on the company side. We can't control company policy, right? We can't control when the company is going to reply to your application. We can't even control if they're going to see it, right? So there are things that we're limited on. It's really all on the company. So as much as you learn about the process, the company culture, the better off you'll be. Don't let these things be a barrier. That's what I'm saying. Identify, if you want to work international, think about for the next 2 weeks, like, man, do I really want to do it? And go for it. Because the people who say, look, I want to go international. That's my first choice. I want to go international, and there's particular regions of the world. Your chances of making that happen are a lot higher than if you say, well, I'll go international if I don't get the job here in Portugal. Because it's really a secondary goal, okay? And international, there's international, okay? I mean, you can be working in Portugal in an international position, all right? You can have a position where, like my position, for example, is international. I have to travel a lot, dealing with foreign students or dealing with, foreign companies. I do a lot of regional and international development. So you can have that type of position where maybe you're working for, I don't know, Unilever, Geronimo Martins, or Sumo Compal, whatever the company is. And maybe they're like, hey, we have operations in Poland, or we have something here in Germany. And part of your job is to be based here, and you'll be traveling. Those opportunities exist, okay? You just need to assess it early enough to say, okay, what is the likelihood that I can get into that department? Or is that a department that's growing here in Portugal, or are they staffing more in the emerging market? Okay, so that's why I say you have to, everything would get back to planning and doing your initial research. Okay, so work permits, that can be a barrier, okay? Zero has a horrendous work authorization process. So you really want a company to take on that challenge. It's nothing you can do. The company has to say, okay, we want to hire you, so we'll do all the legal stuff to make that happen, okay? Languages, don't let language be the barrier. Okay, identify very early, okay, if the company says, well, we're willing, if you speak English, we're willing to train you on the other language if you're really, going to try to learn, because it's important that you learn this local language for down the road, okay? Fine, it's not a barrier. But if it is a barrier, See what you can do to gain as much fluency as possible. Third barrier, and I won't say it's the last barrier, but most important, pay attention to the politics of the region. Okay? The politics, pay attention. The government, Portugal is a great example. Now, 6 months ago, you may say, oh, well, I'm moving, imagine a foreigner. And they say, hey, I'm moving to Portugal, I'm going to get XYZ salary. Then all of a sudden, a few weeks ago, let's say, the government said, well, now we're going to cut one of those salaries. So the salary you negotiated really is not the salary that you're going to get. All these little things that you, from the outside, if you're not paying attention to the government, the politics, the policies, what's going on in that region of the world, if there's some impending war, just any type of strife, when you say, whoa, wait a minute. The company is offering a great opportunity. There's a lot of growth there, but man, there's a lot of uncertainty. You need to, business is politics and politics is business. So even though you guys are studying business, you really need to be just as knowledgeable about politics because it affects business. I was just reading, I took the train here, and I was reading the Financial Times, and I hope you read the Financial Times. At least once a week if you can just get to it because it would keep you very knowledgeable about business. But anyway, I was reading about Vestas. How many of you guys know about Vestas? Okay, well Vestas, maybe it's Dutch, I don't know. Anyway, Vestas is a Dutch company. They're like a renewable energies company. They make like wind turbines. Those big old wind turbines, wind fans, whatever you call them. So they were saying, well, we were expecting to have a great business, but in the U.S., there's a wind turbine tax policy that the United States had. And it was very generous, right? And the policy is set to expire at the end of the year. And so investors said, well, if that policy expires, that's going to screw 70 to 90% of the industry in terms of like sales and growth. And they said our personal business is going to drop by 30%. And we're probably going to have to lay off, 10,000 people, or like 3,000 people. So you start looking at all these things where you may say, oh, I'm trying to get a job, at Vestas or this particular industry, in the renewable industry. But if you're not paying attention to the politics of something that has nothing to do with you, you can't control it, right? You're not in politics. And it could be something that is in one country far away, but if that change goes into effect, it can screw up your career plans. And it would just be unforeseen. So you can think, wow, I'm gonna get a job here. Then all of a sudden, the company says, well, now we're on a hiring freeze, which I've seen happen several times. So that's the only thing I really want to impress upon you about international careers. It's just really just doing your homework. It's really just starting early in advance and saying, well, look, when we look at the barriers to entry, work optimization, okay? Language, politics. Just remember that. Work optimization, language, politics, okay? Maybe one won't get you, maybe the other will. Because maybe you won't have to worry about work optimization if you're in somewhere where you already have work optimization. Language, maybe if you already have language, you don't have to worry about that. But politics is outside of your control. You can't do anything. You don't know what's going to happen in Spain. Anyone in Spain knows what's going to happen in Spain, right? So imagine you want a career there, and all of a sudden the industry that you want to work in just goes bottom up because now their sales are just going downhill, and they say, well, no, we're laying off people. Right now, we're not really hiring anyone. So just think about those things, and if you have any questions, I think maybe have a few minutes just to take a couple of questions. I hope I didn't speak too fast. I love this stuff, so I started getting excited. But they have it on tape, so maybe you can download it on YouTube or something. So. All right.